Welcome to Layer of the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. Today, another episode of heavy hidden gems from the 70s. I've got two pretty cool bands that we're kind of getting, a little bit deeper, a little bit more obscure into the 70s, but still some really cool stuff that if you're into heavy rock, proto-metal, proto-doom, you should check these bands out. Don't forget, in the description below, I have a link to a Spotify playlist where I take a couple songs from these albums, put them in the playlist along with some of the other bands that I've covered so far in our Heavy Hidden Gems series. All right, so let's get into it. Our first band for today, I have two bands for today. The first one is called Blues Creation from 1971. The name of the album is Demon and 11 Children. I don't have the vinyl of this, I only have the CD. Blues Creation was a Japanese band that had released one album before this, formed in 1969, released an album in 1970. There was mostly American blues covers, and then they released this album, which is a proto-metal, even some doomish, very kind of Sabbathy, heavy rock. I hear some Deep Purple in there also. Now, because they're a Japanese band, they're singing in English, but there is kind of a strange, sometimes accent happening with the lead vocals. But it's a little distracting at times, but overall it doesn't really bother me. The vocals are good. They're not mind-blowing. What is really, really great on this record, though, is the guitar playing. The guitar player's name, and I'm sure I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, is Kazuo Takeda. Blues Creation went on to release a couple more records. Then they just changed their name to Creation, and apparently Kazuo is worked with a little while with Felix Popularity from Mountain right around when they changed the name of the band to Creation. And Felix, I guess, was involved in some of the albums under the title of Creation where they brought in a female singer and it was doing more kind of blues stuff. And I guess now he's an active LA session guitar player. And man, there is some really, really great guitar playing on this album. I would compare it to, there's a heavy blues influence, but, I hear some Blackmore in there and like some of the scales that he uses. There's one song on here, Just I Was Born, where he sort of quotes this little classical riff, which is kind of cool. There's kind of Sabbathy style riffs all over this. The opening track called Atomic Bombs Away has this kind of heavy midsection, kind of bluesy riff, but again, kind of in that Sabbathy dark thing. The guitar tone on this record too is really pretty good. Again, it has kind of reminds me of like 1970, 1971 Ritchie Blackmore. The rest of the recording it's okay. It's not, I wouldn't say it's distracting. It's certainly not a hi-fi recording. You can tell that it was, done on a low budget, but, I wouldn't say that it's to the point of distracting. There is one song on here that's just a real throwaway. It's called Mississippi Mountain Blues, which I guess harkens back to, this first album that they released. And this particular CD version has four or five extra songs on the end that I'm guessing they're from this first record. I didn't research it because they're just straight up blues. So the Mississippi Mountain Blues is just kind of a throwaway blues thing. And unfortunately, during this era, there were a lot of these types of underground bands where they didn't have quite a focused 100% focused sound, and you'll find this a lot where there's just kind of these throwaway numbers, and a lot of times they're just sort of like blues jams, and that's what that particular one is. There's a song called Sorcerer, which is really, really cool. It starts off with a really heavy, or it's got a heavy distorted bass in it that it's like really busy. The verses, it's sort of the guitar gets a little quiet and the bass is like really busy. Reminds me of like Jack Bruce. And there's a fade out on this where the band just sort of jams out. Again, the Cream comparison, the bass, it sounds like he's playing a Gibson SG bass, super distorted, and the guitar is jamming out on the end. Sooner or Later is another one that has a really great Blackmore-ish style lead in it. And probably the highlight of this album is the title track, which is the last song on the record besides the bonus tracks. The Demon and 11 Children. This is about 9 minutes and 15 seconds, and it goes through all these different changes. It starts off with this really Black Sabbath-y style riff. It sounds like the song Black Sabbath a little bit. It's really long. It's got all these sort of proggy tempo changes. There's a lot of great lead playing in it. So, so overall, it's a cool record. The recording quality, like I said, is kind of lo-fi, but it's definitely worth checking out for the guitar playing and some of the, heavy Sabbath-y style riffs. So the next band I have is a band called, and I'm going to take it out of the plastic here, Jerusalem, with their self-titled first album. This is not an original. This is a reissue from Rockadrome Records, originally released on Deerham Records. This came out in 1972. They're a British band. Interesting about this, it was produced by Ian Gillan. And if I can read on the back here what little bit of what he says here. He says, "This is the first album by Jerusalem, a band which excites me very much. They are rough, raw, and doomy with their own strong identity." Now, from what I could tell, that was an original quote from Ian Gillan. I sort of wondered, like, was that quote done somewhere later on? Because I was surprised to hear him say doomy, maybe just something, this early in time. But from what I could tell, that was an original quote. Unfortunately, the recording quality on this is okay. The guitars are a little noisy and bright. The drums are kind of small sounding. The bass is there. It doesn't really jump out at you. The guitar sound is probably what I'm most disappointed in because it's a little thin, it doesn't have a lot of meat on the guitar sound, which is kind of surprising because you would think if they could afford to have Ian Gillan producing that they must have had some kind of budget for this. But unfortunately, it's a little thin and at times a little bit distorted and trebly and a little bit distracting. But what really makes this record is the vocalist. The vocals on this are really cool. They're kind of he's got kind of a rough sounding, slightly distorted voice when he goes up really high. Like the first song on the record, Hooded Eagle, it has this really kind of chugging riff, and then in a chorus it goes into sort of like a halftime chorus where the singer goes up really high and he's got this real kind of raspy, kind of shouty style voice, which really works in that particular song. Another highlight for me was a song called I See the Light, which has kind of a real fast, proggy, syncopated type ending, and the lyrics are about a soldier accidentally killing a child. And I should point out here, this is nice gatefold with the lyrics. It even came with this insert here with a lot of information on the band, which was pretty cool to read up on the band. Probably my favorite song on this record is on side 2. It's called Primitive Man. It starts off with this sort of ominous bass intro, really intense vocals, a doomy riff, kind of catchy chorus. So that's my favorite on the record. Beyond the Grave is another one that it kind of starts off with this clean guitar, which reminds me of it's kind of playing this like sitar kind of like line, and the song sort of slowly moves around, and it eventually it sort of drops down and it gets really kind of sinister and ominous sounding, which is pretty cool. The last song on the record, She Came Like a Bat from Hell, has a catchy riff that the vocals kind of double double the riff along with it. You know, kind of a cool upbeat rocker. So Jerusalem, very cool. You know, recording quality takes away from the experience a little bit, but you know, overall, it's definitely, I think, worth checking out for some of the songs that I highlighted. So that's it for today. Make sure you check out that playlist or look these bands up on YouTube. Hit like and subscribe, the notification bell, all that stuff. Let me know if you've heard these bands before, what you think of them, and let me know if there's any other heavy hidden gems that you think I should discuss. So, till we see you next time, remember to stay heavy and stay metal.